Welcome to the York Daily Record Sunday News Editorial Board. My name is Scott Fisher, and I'm the editorial page editor. And we are here today with State Senator Scott Wagner, a Republican from Spring Garden Township, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, obviously the big news in Harrisburg is the lack of a state budget and the back and forth between the legislature and Governor Tom Wolf. Just thought maybe we could start off broadly with kind of a sense from you of where are we in the process. Obviously, the governor's vetoed the budget that was passed. There are, as I understand it, some negotiations between legislative leaders and the governor. Where are we now? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, the governor gave us a budget back in March, early March, and that budget was a $4.5 billion tax increase. And I want to, I think it's important for people to know that, I serve on the Appropriations Committee, and I attended 33 meetings. One meeting, the shortest was an hour and a half, and the longest was 3.5, and probably somewhere between 80 and 100 hours of meetings. But basically, we were given a budget spreadsheet line by line, and Penn State came in, and DEP came in, labor and industry, and we went line by line. So the amount of information is for me is breathtaking, and it's a huge learning curve. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we sent a budget to the governor on June 30th, and it was a $1 billion increase over last year's spending. And the governor is looking for approximately $4.5 billion. So we were told even before the budget reached his desk that he was going to veto the budget, and he did within 2 hours. And for me, that's disappointing because the governor did not go through the budget. And the governor actually, as I'm learning, sort of the methods in Harrisburg, but there are lines, there are certain departments that the budgets could have been approved. And you start working through it. I mean, it's sort of taking a bite of the apple or eating the elephant a bite at a time. But the bottom line is the governor, he wants his budget, and it's sort of his way or the highway. And so we are nowhere. The governor continues to talk about the severance tax. When he ran his campaign, he sat in a classroom with students and said, there's $1 billion right below us. And he continues to stick to that. Now, if the governor, if the state did have a severance tax, the latest numbers, and as of this morning, based on the current market pricing, and again, I went back and did some research. At my company, we're paying $1.05 a CCF, and I mean, again, I know enough to be dangerous in natural gas terms, but Governor Wolf is looking at he is estimating a market price. He thinks, and he's trying to play the crystal ball routine, that he thinks if the market was at $3.25 and the market is a third of that number, but at the current number, it would only generate for the 15-16 year would be $55 million. Next year would be 113, and so forth. So it's nowhere near the $1 billion that he thinks it's going to generate. Mm-hmm. And I want to be clear that I am totally opposed to a severance tax, and here's why.
Didn't you say previously that you would consider one, though?
Consider is study it.
Okay.
And so, since the natural gas industry has come to Pennsylvania, and I know of people that own properties throughout Pennsylvania, and I have a friend that has 200 acres, and he received $1,500 an acre to sign up with the gas companies, and he gets royalty checks. And so there was approximately $4 to $5 billion paid for land leases, upfront money. The gas companies came to Pennsylvania and they spent money like drunken sailors, and they paid a lot of money. And as a result, since the natural gas industry has really evolved in PA, they've paid $2.3 billion in taxes, okay? And there's an impact fee that was passed 4 years ago. And that impact fee, it's a tax. Fees are taxes. So the impact tax fee is generated $850 million. And I've done some research in Greene County, Washington County, 2 western counties that have a lot of drilling, and I've been in those counties. I mean, there are hundreds of wells out there and hundreds of rigs, gas, tank trucks, tractor trailers. I mean, it's like the Wild West. Mm-hmm. And those areas have received, for example, maybe 35 or 50 million over a period of time for their roads and bridges in their area. And recently it was just announced that York County received, I think, a couple $100,000, and cumulatively it's been like a little over $1 million. So every county is getting something from the impact fee tax.
Can I stop you there for a
Yes.
second? Did you see that Darrell Otterson, who's president of the York County Economic Alliance, had an op-ed piece in Sunday's paper saying that lawmakers really need to consider a severance tax, saying that those impact fees are going to start to drop and we won't see that kind of money here in York County anymore?
I respect Darrell's opinion, but Darrell doesn't know what I know. And I'm on the inside. And, I've been in the Senate now for about 16 months. And, when I was on the outside, I was similar to Darrell. I wasn't on the inside of the sausage factory. I'm in the sausage factory, and I see, what's going on inside, and I see how the sausage is being manufactured. But here's where I want to be real clear to everybody, that in this budget, Governor Wolf is the governor. In my world, he is the CEO of the state of Pennsylvania, and he has certain responsibilities. But what this governor has not done, Governor Wolf, he has not come forward with one single cost savings or efficiency initiative. And for example, during the appropriations hearings and a previous meeting that I had with Acting Secretary Quigley from DEP, I'm very familiar with DEP inspectors, and they routinely come to our business, and we really don't have a lot to inspect. I mean, we operate a fleet. But when they number one, they never make an appointment. So they just show up randomly, and typically there's 3 inspectors that show up at one time, and every inspector's driving their own car. So there are 3 cars, 3 inspectors. And in my world, time management, every minute is precious to me. So the DEP doesn't understand how time management works. But their motive is to show up so they can find whoever they're visiting, whether it's they want to find people doing something wrong, so they can find them. And they can show up and they can give us a couple hours notice, they give us a previous day's notice, but the reality is they also come in and they have a tablet and they'll write down their findings or whatever, and then they go back to Harrisburg and they sit there and input all that information in a computer system. Mm-hmm. Well, the real world today at Penn Waste, our sales reps have notebooks, and our sales rep, instead of writing, they'll sit here and do this, and then it goes to our mainframe computer. Mm-hmm. So I come from the private sector, and I believe that DEP, if they had the right tools, now, and the other thing too is that Secretary Quigley doesn't come from the private sector, so he would not be familiar with a lot of the cutting edge systems that we use in the private sector, GPS systems, tablets. I mean, there's tons of things. But I believe, and this is my belief, and I may be off, I may be off a little bit, but I think if DEP the inspectors had the right tools and they went away from a paper system, they probably could become more productive by 20 to 25% with the same amount of people. Mm-hmm. But under the governor's budget, he wants to hire another 50 inspectors. And we don't need 50 more inspectors. We need the people that are there to have the tools to be more effective and more productive. And if they scheduled appointments and to visit, Pennsylvania companies, just think how much more they could be productive. But if somebody just showed up at my door, and when they come to my door, at our company, it's very disruptive. We have to, round the appropriate people up.
But aren't they kind of like police officers in a sense? I mean, police don't just show up, they don't call you and tell you they're going to show up and investigate you, or,
Well, they're hitting a nerve, and the nerve is that I believe there are bad actors out there in every industry, and those bad actors will get caught, but there are a lot of good actors, and if we're going to take the attitude that we want to send people out and our motive is to find you doing something wrong, why would you want to come to Pennsylvania? Well, honestly, why would I want to stay in Pennsylvania, or why would I want to come to Pennsylvania?
You mean as a businessman?
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's face it, my various businesses, I'm not here to talk about my businesses, but I employ people, hundreds of people. And, we don't get up in the morning saying we want to bend the rules so we can make another $5. It just doesn't, That's not, we are so safety driven, for example. And I think everybody in every industry is safety driven, whether, because, if someone gets hurt, someone gets, fatalities, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, we don't have, Pennsylvania is not business friendly, and that's the nerve that I think is being hit with a lot of people. We work hard, we take a lot of risks, but at the end of the day, the governor has not, he's the governor. He ran, he wanted to be the governor. And so my challenge to Governor Wolf is, you need to step forward with some cost-saving initiatives. This is a turnaround situation. When the governor ran his campaign, he talked about how he turned around his family business. And I had a conversation with the governor one day in the cabinet, and he said, Scott, we actually lowered prices to our customers and we increased wages. But what the governor, there had to be somewhere that he found dollars. And how he found dollars is he moved his manufacturing operations, or the manufacturing of most of the cabinets or components for his business, to Indiana. And so they're manufactured by apparently a very efficient large Amish operation in Indiana. He did what he had to do. But, the governor is, we're waiting. So
Can I back up there?
Sure.
Just look at the sort of the big picture. Now, he says, I'm willing to compromise. The Republicans who are running the show in both houses are not. They're simply not willing to negotiate at all. Would you say that's a fair assessment of the situation?
Here's a fact. Last Monday and Tuesday, the Senate was in session. But where was the governor? The governor wasn't in the Capitol. The governor was out in the State College area. He was in Senator Corman's district. Mm-hmm. He never called Senator Corman. He went out there. The governor's out. Listen, the governor's out campaigning. He's in school districts. The campaign's over. The governor needs to come back to Harrisburg. He needs to roll up his shirt sleeves and sit down and find ways. And I put together a list. Pension management fees. The governor talked about what the state spends for pension management fees. We spend 137 basis points. We spend a little over $1 billion to have $70 billion managed. At 137 basis points is approximately $1 billion. Now, if I were Governor Wolf, I would bring all the investment guys in that are managing the CSRS and PSRS funds, and I'd say, gentlemen, I need some help here, and I'm asking you to take 50 basis points off your fees. And if you're willing to do that, I do this in business every day. If you're willing to do that, then we won't have to go out and shop. We'll take 50, you're talking 50 basis points on $70 billion is $350 million. I mean, that's low-hanging fruit. But he identified $500 million. I had someone give me some information about 14 months ago that if all the money was moved to Vanguard index funds at 10 basis points, and that could be a little extreme, it would save $900 million. So I put $500 million. If we eliminated prevailing wage mandates on school districts, York Suburban is school district, which I represent, and I live in that district. They have a large roof replacement project going on. And the business manager came back to one of the board members, and that business manager believes that those projects are costing $800,000 more because of prevailing wage. And the business manager went back as far as and said that it's probably a little less than $500,000 in taxes. So, but the unions are not going to allow prevailing wage mandate elimination to happen. But at the end of the day, there's a labor shortage now, and they think that the argument out there, listen, I come from the private sector, and right now there is a skilled labor crisis. So if we can't find roofers at $30 an hour, we're not going to find them at $11 an hour. But prevailing wage mandate elimination on school districts, that's $300 million. If you look at, there are approximately 700,000 people that are currently employed and are retired that are on the CSRS and PSRS system. The benefits that a lot of the House members, for example, they don't pay anything towards health insurance. I don't know what the staffers pay, but I'm talking like the House members from our district, Stan Saylor, Seth Grove. What I've been told is they don't contribute to their health insurance.
You're not taking those, are you?
I do not take the pension, and I don't take the health insurance, and I pay all my expenses in my office. Travel, you come to my office, you have coffee, water, I pay for everything.
Have you thought about donating your salary like Governor Wolf has done?
No, and I'll tell you why, because my salary is 84, and after tax it's 57, and 57 doesn't cover my expenses. So I mean, I'm a pretty good deal. I mean, at the end of the day, this job is probably costing me somewhere in the $25,000 to $35,000 range out of my pocket. But, you know, if we went out just those, and you have a lot of retired people, and I'm sorry, but, you know, the benefits are so generous. But if we just ask 700,000 people that are retired or currently working to pay $5 a week, that's $200 million a year, okay? And we're doing it in the private sector. York Suburban and Central, the average teacher pays around somewhere between 8 and 10% for their health care insurance. In the private sector, it's about 25%. And so there are many things. The governor's talked about our credit rating. And why is our credit rating so bad? Our credit rating is so bad because we have this pension crisis. And if we solve this pension crisis, and honestly, everyone should go into a 401k program. The days of defined benefit are over. Mathematically, we can't do it. And when I talk about that, I have a spreadsheet, Scott, that shows and I'll give this to you, but it shows the school districts in the 28th district, and the one that I have highlighted is the Central York School District. In 2008-9, the obligation was $1.5 million. It's projected in 1920 to be $13.5 million. That is an 800% increase over basically a 10-year period. And so, I mean, it's 800, 6, 7, I mean, there's only one school district that's around 500%, that's York City. The rest are over 700. So this pension, we have got to solve it. And at the end of the day, the 401k program is the way to do this.
Now, some critics have said doing that's going to actually cost us money,
Well,
and it
I would
doesn't
like
solve the debt problem.
I would like the critics to step forward and say, show me where it's going to cost money. Because I'm open, you know, I don't want to just step back and say, I don't believe you, because it may, but I don't have that information. But at the end of the day, Governor, our credit rating in the state of Pennsylvania, because of the pension crisis that we have, the governor said that we're probably paying, you know, 500 to 700 million more per year in borrowing costs. Someone said it's closer to $1 billion, but I used 500 million. I met with a beer distributor last summer, and really sophisticated beer distributor in my district. And if a restaurant, for example, buys a case of Coors Light and they pay $10 for that case of Coors Light, that restaurant pays 60 cents on the wholesale side. But when that restaurant turns around and sells it by the bottle, and he sells that whole case for $30, there's no sales tax on the back end. You go to all the surrounding states. If we were to change the sales tax formula from the wholesale to the retail side, that's $200 million in additional revenue. There are currently there's been a lot of talk about, you know, liquor privatization. There are currently 1,200 liquor licenses that are in escrow, that the people that have those licenses, they pay $5,000 a year to keep them in escrow. If those licenses, if we were able to bring those 1,200 licenses out and spread them all, you know, in the areas in the state, and they were to generate $1 million worth of revenue, that's $1.2 billion in additional revenue, okay?
How would that translate into revenue? Because they actually own those licenses?
Well, they own the license, but the license is sitting there not generating. A license was issued for a reason, to allow someone to sell, you know, food and liquor, beer, wine. Mm-hmm. But if we got those licenses out and they're just sitting there, and that generates $1.2 billion in sales at 6%. Okay. That's $72 million. Now, you know, I don't understand. There's the Johnstown flood tax and all that kind of stuff, but at a minimum, you're talking $72 million. And so instead of leaving those licenses in escrow at $5,000, I think the fee should be, you know, $35,000. And I have a reason why I'm saying to get them out.
Why should they even be allowed to do that? Put things in escrow. I mean, it's a state license. Why are individuals allowed to own these things and sell them for hundreds of thousands of dollars and put them into escrow and save them for retirement and so forth?
Well, the answer to that is we've always done it that way, and that's the problem in Harrisburg. They've always done it that way. But you know, let's go back to the severance tax issue. There are currently 1,100 gas wells in the state of Pennsylvania that are drilled and they're capped. They are not pulling any gas out of those wells. The well is here. The main line, transmission line is here. There is not a gathering line between that wellhead and the main pipeline. So let's say that we this is where I believe the money should be spent. The gas companies, instead of being taxed, they should be spending money on capital. Let's face it, this requires a backhoe, this requires buying pipe, it requires manpower, and I don't know what a gathering line would cost, but let's hypothetically say it's $100,000 to get it from point A to point B. And so if we have 1,100 wells that are capped, and those wells could generate $500,000 a year in gas sales, and or $500,000 per well, that's $550 million in revenue. And the gas companies are going to pay tax. The owner of the property is going to get a royalty. They're going to pay tax. I just threw $5 million in. So it's this money's starting to add up. And then finally, if we had a cost-saving initiative throughout the whole state, every department, and the budget is a $30 billion budget, but the budget is much greater than $30 billion. PennDOT is not in here. The Turnpike is not in here. There's a lot of federal dollars that roll in. There are a lot of dollars that roll in that come in through fees and licenses. So this is really about a $60 billion budget at the end of the day. But I can tell you, I know companies that would come in to Harrisburg and they would have a cost-saving initiative, and they could find easily $200 million.
So you're saying that if we did all these things, we wouldn't need tax increases, or we could save the government money?
Absolutely. This is $1.977 billion. It's $2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
In the real world, if I buy a distressed company, and with the pension crisis we're a distressed state. And Governor Wolf's tax increase is the largest in the country, and it also there have been reports that the governor doesn't, and everybody knows this. There's not a single cost-saving initiative, and the reason there's no initiative, that Governor Wolf was funded heavily by the public sector unions. This would all, in some form or fashion, if it's prevailing wage, pension management fees. And then you have 2,000 lobbyists. Trust me, the lobbyists, if you all of a sudden started talking about whacking out $500 million in costs, the lobbyists are going to be like swarming Harrisburg. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the governor was elected the governor, and you just can't write a letter to the taxpayers of Pennsylvania and say, guess what, we have financial problems, we have to raise everybody's prices. This should have been done first, and honestly, in the private sector world, this budget process that we go through is amazing to me. We should have zero-based budget.
It's not going to put anything on the broadcast until you tell it to through YouTube.
Okay.
So now that we've hit, the speed test was sad, but it's probably faster now. But whatever, I'm not going to mess with it. We seem to be doing okay. Oh, I probably have the wrong, speaking of channels, let's, because it was set for